we there?
Yeah, we're here. All right.
We're here. Hi, everybody.
Sit down, folks. It's not going to take a while. It might take a while, depending on what we're drinking tonight. So, welcome everyone to Isles Talk. This is the New York Islanders season in review. I am your host this evening. My name is Paul Kreischer. Joining me, as always, the creator of everything multimedia Islanders, the one and only Gary Harding.
I'm hacking.
And
There's no checking the
finally,
mail, so forget about it.
yeah, and finally, he's going on vacation. He goes to Hawaii. He goes to Florida. He goes to Timbuktu. He goes to Buffalo. He goes everywhere. Doesn't say hello to us until the end of the hockey season. Ladies and gentlemen, the other trio of Isles Talk, John Panarese. John, how are you?
Good, but wait a second. You were supposed to let me know about audio recordings for the Isles Talk website.
I did, but you haven't come on the show yet.
Well, you haven't invited
I'm actually
me.
fixing up that. I actually am fixing up the site. That's going to be happening hopefully very soon. But yeah, we are going to get that site up and running a little more smoothly. But yeah, you'll be more involved.
Okay.
And Joe Panattieri was going to join us, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, where he lives, there's a lot of pollen. There's a lot of allergies, which he is allergic to. So every time he sneezes, he slips a disc. So he is on the injured reserve right now, ladies and gentlemen. He'll be back sometime soon. Don't know when. But we do miss you, Joe, especially me. So, oh, there he is. He's in the comments section. Hey, Joe, how are you?
Nice.
Uh-huh. All righty. Moving on now. All right, folks. In all seriousness, this was a very tough season. There's no other way to say it. Let's go over the standings, some of the stats here, and we're gonna go find out exactly what happened with this team. And unfortunately, many of you are going to find out that there was really nothing wrong with the team itself. They just ended up not being as good as the other 8 teams above them. So the Islanders do finish in 9th place with a 37-35-10 record for 84 points, not even near what they were supposed to get, not even near the 8th place and final spot, that second wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference. And Gary and I had been going over this before, and this will be the final time, and I hope I personally never see this again. The Panthers with 122 points.
That's amazing.
The Carolina Hurricanes with 116. The someone will shoot me for that. The Toronto Maple Leafs, 115. The New York Rangers with 110. The Tampa Bay Lightning with 110. In 6th place right now, the Boston Bruins, 107. The Pittsburgh Penguins finish off with 7th with 103 points. And you have the Washington Capitals in 8th place with 100 points. Gentlemen, this is the first time in NHL history that the top 8 teams have finished with 100 points or better. We have never seen anything like this. The closest we've come to was 2015, when I believe it was the Penguins with 98 points, and the Boston Bruins missed the playoffs in 9th place with 96.
It's pretty amazing.
Gary, first, give me your thoughts on when I read off those numbers like that. Give me your thoughts on the overall NHL Eastern Conference this year. Were you expecting something like that?
No, there's no way anybody would have expected that the 8th place team would reach 100 points. But in saying that sentence and talking about the standings, there's still, to me, and it's hard to say this, and I'm going to get beaten up for saying it, but I still think there's parity in this league. It's just, unfortunately, there is a middle ground, but there is such a deep division between 1 and 16. But 1 to 10, 1 to 9, it's strong. And I again, we'll talk about this as the show continues on. But the way things turned out for our guys, whenever all the things going on, put it in a normal situation. And I really don't see this team with 84 points. I see this team where I thought they would have been when we talked in October, be in the high 90s and be in a state that they should make the postseason and do what this way this team is constructed do best, play playoff hockey. And and like I said, we'll go over it, but the West, I think the number 8 team had 95, I think. National 95 or 97.
You are correct. I'm going to find out for you. Hold on.
It's either 95 or 97, but still, that's still strong.
Right.
That's
97.
just showing. Yeah, that's just showing, how good, 16 teams can reach almost that 100-point mark. Just shows you, what kind of talent there is in this league. And then, the teams that fell short, and again, we'll talk about this, but, Vegas didn't make it, despite all the problems that they have and how deep of a team they are, how deep of a team the Islanders still are. Regardless of the stats and the numbers and whatever, they're still a deep core team. So it's just, as we said in the last show, to me, it's a write-off. It's just, as a financial person, we put that into the accounting category or just push it off and, look at the rest of the numbers and I'm sure we'll do that.
John, give me your thoughts on the standings, the NHL, what we've seen so far.
Well, I would have never expected this. And I just think this, I don't know if I'm going into territory we wanted to discuss later, but I just think this has been a very unique season overall with COVID. And I think that it affected a lot of teams, particularly early in the season. And I think that might reflect a little bit on how we got the ending we have now. But still, as Gary said, there is a lot of talent in this league. And, you just look, you get how many guys that had over 100 points? When's the last time we've seen offensive numbers like this?
Probably in the 90s.
Right.
Yeah,
and you have somebody with 60 goals. When's the last time somebody scored 60 goals? I just think it's a combination of a lot of things, but no, if you're going to answer your question simply, no, I would not have predicted having 8 teams with over 100 points in the Eastern Conference.
And look at, and just taking at it, we're talking about Matthews with 60 for the first time in a long time. Look at, Roman Josi, Nashville, 95 points on the back line. That's the most points for a defenseman since 1993.
Right.
It's just telling you the state of the game, how the talent has just gotten so much better. It's not that goaltending is horrible, because it's not, because you've seen some other numbers reflecting how good goaltending is. It's just the talent level, the skill level, and what these guys can do on a rink now is just, you couldn't imagine what they do now from, say, even 10 years ago, let alone 30.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
It's just, the game has gotten so much better, and the cream, the top players will rise up even higher. And that's what's happened this year.
I agree.
So we're going to go over real quick, what went wrong with the Islanders. And we're not going to get into that 13-game stretch just yet. But I wanted to bring this up first. It was a question brought up on Twitter through our mutual friend, Nick Hershon. And I got permission to actually bring his tweet onto the show. And as a thank you, for those of you who have not bought the book, here it is. We Want Fish Sticks. It's a very good book. It's an easy read. Go ahead. We all lived through it. You'll live through the book.
And years before that, he also wrote the history of the Nassau Coliseum book too.
Yes, he did. I have that somewhere.
Yeah, it's a very good book.
Yeah, I think I have both of them in electronic.
Nick's a good friend.
Yes. So Nick wrote on Twitter, what are your biggest takeaways from the 21-22 NHL season? And here was his. Islanders overperformed in the past two postseasons, and they need to acquire an elite scorer and younger forwards and bid farewell to a few fan favorites in order to make another deep playoff run. I know where he's going with that. I'm going to respectfully disagree just a smidge, but I know where he's going with that. This was a team that really hit one bad bump in the road.
Is a messy steak sandwich.
And I'm going to go over the stats real quick.
Hold on a second.
Everyone.
Hold on a second. Chris, where's my food?
Gary wants to know where his food is.
Yeah, seriously.
It's in Buffalo. Come up and get
damn.
it. Tough one for us.
Yeah, really.
Okay, gotcha.
So the Islanders basically ended up the season with 229 goals. Folks, in all honesty, playing the numbers correctly, they were supposed to finish with 240. You play you play your averages right, like you're supposed to. 240. Where are you missing the 11 goals from? 6 goals from Kyle Palmieri. Thank you, refs.
7.
Yeah, I think it's 7 actually,
7.
right?
Okay, it's 7 now. Anthony Beauvillier had a tough year. Matthew Barzal also had a tough year. Ryan Pulock missing significant time.
Yep.
And let's be honest, Palmieri and Panarese and JG Pageau really didn't start showing up until the second half of the season. So what's wrong with the Islanders' offense? Honestly, nothing. They just weren't as good as they were supposed to be. And they were really, really good in a shorter amount of time in the second half because what Gary said, these guys are ready to play playoff hockey. Okay. The biggest Achilles heel for this team was when Semyon Varlamov was in net. Okay. For those of you who are still thinking about trading Semyon Varlamov, I don't think that's going to happen. The Islander forwards basically owe him a season of scoring goals. Okay. The final tally was that the Islanders scored a whopping 76 goals in basically 30 games, which computes to about 2.5 goals. 2.5 goals.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately for Varlamov, 12 of those games were against the following teams: Carolina, Tampa Bay, the Blues, the Avs, Boston twice, the Rangers 3 times, Toronto, Minnesota, Calgary. Basically the top 10 teams in the league. And the Islanders did absolutely nothing for Varlamov. As a matter of fact, out of those 12 games, he only won 2 of those. There just wasn't enough scoring, and there wasn't enough defense for this team. So this goes back to what's wrong with the Islanders? Nothing. They just weren't good this year against the top teams like they should have been. Okay, we're not going to sugarcoat. We're not going to sugarcoat.
And all
this,
things all things considered, with the issue of having to play basically every 1.8 days for the final 35 games of the season, they played well.
Yeah, they did.
And you're not going to hear it, You may not hear it today. You may not hear it tomorrow. You may hear it a week from now. But I guarantee you dollars to donuts, at least on one hand, maybe on hand number 2, you're going to hear how many guys were not well.
Absolutely.
Or playing injured. And when
Absolutely.
when you're playing injured, it's one thing. You can get rest. You can have days off or whatever, but not on that schedule. You can't, because you're not practicing. Basically, you're basically chilling out a day and then going
right back at it again.
100% balls to the wall on game days. And, I really, and you could see it watching some of the guys in the last week or so. You could see the guys that were playing hurt. To me, I think Pageau was hurt the whole second half.
Yeah.
And he played well. And he played well, was physical, was involved, scored some points. He did well. Palmieri did well. Parisi to me is my, they haven't announced the Bobby Nystrom Award, but to me, if anybody is voting other than Zach Parisi for the Bobby Nystrom Award, you're totally off your gourd. Okay.
Yep.
So the team played well. I'm not disappointed at all with any of the performance of the guys. It's just the first half, they just weren't there.
Right. And there was reasons for that, though.
No excuses. They just weren't there.
Right.
And,
all right. So allow me to hit you with this. Allow me to hit you with this rebuttal then. When Ilya Sorokin was in net, out of the 51 games that Sorokin played, the Islanders ended up scoring 153, which is basically 3 goals a game.
Yeah. It's weird. We talk about this in baseball all the time. I.e. Jacob deGrom.
Yes.
Jacob deGrom will throw 7 scoreless innings, and the Mets don't get a run. They don't give him any support. Same thing with Marlon. It just so happens. It's not, it's 2 statistics that don't correlate with each other.
Right.
But they run hand in hand. You can't explain it.
All right. So we're concentrating on that first half of the season, which really did skid this Islander season. There were quite a few people who did have the Islanders winning the Stanley Cup, but then you also hear 13 game road trip to start the season, and you go, oh boy.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. I tried having Brian come in and type the question. I don't know where he is anymore. He basically asked me, why did the Islanders have a 13-game road trip to start the season? Why wasn't UBS Arena finished on time?
Oh, come on.
What was the debacle? What was going on? And
wait,
for
John,
me,
wait for the answer. Wait for the answer. I know the answer.
For me, at this point, it was a fair question, because now it was a good part of the chunk of a season that is responsible in part for the Islanders not doing as well this year. And as a matter of fact, I did find out today. I was told that because the Islanders had lost $33 million in the 2019 and 20 season and $35 million last year, all of that in operating costs, not including the player's salary, were the major sticking points as to why the Islanders could not even play a single game at Nassau Coliseum this year. Gary and I were making sure we had the numbers correct for Charles Wang, who was losing $20 million a year when he was owning and running the Islanders. Malkin and Ledecky basically lost $70 million in operating costs over 2 years. And that's not including those players' salary.
All right.
So, yes, injuries are a factor. COVID was a factor.
Yeah, the COVID was probably the biggest factor for that. Because remember, we had no crowds, no fans in a shortened season last year. 58 games, 56 games, whatever.
And that took a financial toll on these owners. So, in order to get everything going, you needed a 13-game road trip. And here we are. That was one big bump in the road.
You know, just remember too, with the building of the arena,
yes,
you know, it wasn't deliberately held back. There was every intention on having it ready by
on time.
You know, on time. But again, in a world that we were living in from March of 2020 to now, you know, it's amazing that they got it done as fast as they did.
Yes.
Right.
You know,
absolutely.
and not be, you know, Seattle started earlier than, I think they started almost 2 months earlier than we did.
Right.
And they barely, you know, and they had to have a 5-game road trip to start because they knew they were, you know, a couple of weeks away. But just the fact that, you know, that these things happen, you know, it makes a big difference. And you can't say, you know, as an owner or whatever, you can't say to yourself, because there's uncertainty. You know, it's like, can you play at Nassau Coliseum? But you're like, yeah, I think the fans would have loved it. I think the players might have loved coming back for a couple of games or whatever. But you know, they've got to look at bottom line. Unfortunately, you know, yeah. I mean, they've been killed, and you know, not to say that you know they're trying to rape the fans over the coals with costs and everything else and get money back. But yeah, they kind of have to. You know, when you lose $70 million over 2 years, you know, you want to somehow find.
You got to get something back, right?
Even. Not that you're going to make it up in 1 year. It might take them 6 years to make that up. But the point of the matter is, you know, it's just an unfortunate circumstance that, like I said, it put this team, unfortunately, partially behind the 8 ball.
John?
No, and I absolutely agree. I think that's just the circumstances that are beyond control. And like I said, COVID had a much bigger impact on this stuff than people are really giving credit to. And I think that had a lot to do with it. You know, you're losing that income because you don't have fannies in the seats. You don't have the money that they make from that. You know, you have the shortened seasons. So you lose the money and it puts you behind the 8 ball. And what are you going to do? You got to do a 13-game road trip. Was it fair? Was it right? You know, whatever. It's the way it is. You know, so.
Okay, so I'm going to segue back for a moment here with what John was saying with COVID. No one in the stands. You had the bubble tournaments. The Islanders going to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years in a row. Did the Islanders overperform the last 2 seasons? I say no. And I'm going to say no right now because I know, and this is where I give Joe all the respect in the world. Joe has been preaching this now for almost 3 years. Lou Lamoriello, whether people like it or not, knows more about what's going on in the future than we ever will. Lou saw this coming. You just don't cancel the season that day. There were plans made. Circumstances need to be, come into play. Lou knew that was coming. Anyone who covers this team, whether you're a fan or a professional, and you're old enough to remember, and Joe said it many times, the last 2 years of this Islanders squad reminded you of the 95 New Jersey Devils, a team that was built for the playoffs and a short season. And the Devils ended up winning the Stanley Cup in 1995.
Sure
so did the Isles overperform? No. They ended up losing to the 2-time Stanley Cup $94 million salary cap team, Tampa Bay Lightning. Okay. Remember what I just said there, folks. A $94 million salary cap team, Tampa Bay Lightning.
Right. They didn't cheat. They worked the system.
Right. They played the system.
So before you go, saying they're it's a fraud or whatever, they
no fraud
to their favor. They worked to their favor. That's the way it is.
Right. That's just what it was. Right.
Yes. Now, heading into this season, COVID strikes and wreaks havoc on the Islanders again. And now we have the next part. The Bridgeport Islanders coming in, not being able to help out the team. In essence, I believe the team went, give me one moment, gentlemen. Where are you? Oh, right up here. The Islanders ended up going 5-9-6 through their first 20 games. Gary, I know on your radio show way back when, you and Peter Schwartz both correctly said, 17 points in the first 13 games would be phenomenal. You were spot on. That's probably what they needed to actually get here. I was hoping for about 23 or 24 points in their first 20 games. COVID wreaked its ugly head again.
Yep.
And again, this is where Joe wanted to step in. The Islanders finished with 84 points. During their second half, I really wanted to see the Islanders get as close to a 90-point pace as possible for the second half. And they finished off the season with 88, which is right there for me. That's fine. And a point pace of 91 points after game 20 for the rest of the season. This is a solid, and Gary already said this, a solid 90 to 95 point team without COVID. And
Right.
to Joe's point, not making any trades at that trade deadline. Because if this team was in it, folks, I can tell you right now, Lou was ready to pull the trigger on quite a few deals. He was ready for it. It just wasn't meant to be this year. And Lou probably made the better decision to hold back and play the kids a little bit more, which is now going to lead me to the next segment of the show, where the kids held back. I'm going to love this
Scoop.
one.
Come on, Scoop.
Yeah. So, at the beginning of the year, Gary, you want to come down with me on this one?
Yeah, well.
Okay. Gary and I basically came out with the idea that both Oliver Wahlstrom and Kiefer Bellows were going to be sent down to Bridgeport. And we were called crazy. That's nonsense. That's never going to happen. Yada, yada, yada. Well, as it turned out, now that the season's over, I was given confirmation today that, yes, the intention was, in fact, to send both Wahlstrom and Bellows. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Down to Bridgeport after the 13-game road trip. Because essentially, the 13-game road trip was like a bubble trip. You're going out. You needed the players. You need to get through a very long road trip. It's kind of like going out to the bubble tournaments. And those players were actually used to it. And then when they were supposed to return healthy, they were, in fact, to be sent down to Bridgeport. So we weren't wrong, Gary. We were on the right path. Unfortunately, injuries and COVID prevented all of that from happening. And I was also talking to a scout up in the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins organization. For those of you who don't know, I live in the AHL country. I'm like literally no more than 2 hours away from like 5 different American Hockey League arenas.
He's in one of those rare places where you actually can get electricity in Eastern Pennsylvania.
Yes. Sometimes. The wind blows, it's all over.
Yeah.
But I was talking to the scout, and he basically said, look, the Islanders are still poised to go after a Stanley Cup. He's like, unless you're on a really, really bad team right now, you're better off keeping Bellows and Wahlstrom on the team. He's like, unless you were Detroit last year or the Buffalo Sabres a few years back where you're bad, the environment isn't great, then you send the kids down and you learn and you develop it, and you learn and you develop. But the Islanders still had their eyes set on the playoffs, even during COVID, even through the month of November. He's like, so there was a reason to keep them up here. They already had that experience with the team. They knew what to do, so on and so forth. Here's where we're going to ruffle some more feathers, folks. Okay. I don't even think Gary knows this yet. For those of you who think Wallstrom's going to be on this team next year, take a look at that. Right down here. Oliver Wahlstrom. And if you go to the 2022-2023 season, you will see that he is still on a 2-way contract.
Yep.
So, Gary, let's ruffle some feathers. Give me a percentage. Oliver Wahlstrom at some point is down in Bridgeport next season.
That he's down there next season?
That he's down there next season.
I'm going to say about 50%.
So am I. I'm going to go 65 right now, folks.
And to me, this guy has had, because of the situation, and you and I have talked, he's had every single opportunity
to succeed.
Prove everybody wrong. Brain trust. Not fans that all think they know much more than Mr. Lamorello and Mr. Trotz, because they don't. You can have all the talent, all the shooting talent in the world, and believe me, he's got it. I mean, from the age of 9, when he was pulling all those little trick moves, he's got all the talent in the world. But if you can't put it behind you, between your 2 ears, and remember there's 200 feet to a hockey game, then you're never going to make it no matter what.
Well, I will go out on a limb and I will say this. I believe that unless he has a tremendous camp and really proves that he's put the work in the off season, he is going down to Bridgeport to start next season.
Yeah, because, I'll give him credit for defending his teammates on Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't question his ethics. I don't necessarily question his play. I question what the brain does. He's always looking for the offense. He's always looking for this. And it's not just because it's Barry Trotz's system, and it's because it's the Islander system. But I guarantee you go to any other big team, I'll just use Colorado as an example. There's a good team. I don't think Oliver Wahlstrom makes the Colorado Avalanche because of the fact that he doesn't play a full game. Matt Barzal in season 1 had that problem in the beginning. And I remember it was the first year that was with Doug Wade as the coach and not Barry Trotz, but he still for a while had that problem that he wasn't thinking backwards. And, he got Rookie of the Year. Yes. To the chagrin of Mr. Tavares, but he still didn't play that system, and he had to learn. And through Barry Trotz, he learned to be a complete hockey player. It took him a while, but he did. And he's, despite the fact he still didn't score as many points this year, and people are going to moan and groan about that, but he plays the system, and he's not deficient. He doesn't there's a mistake here or there, but for the most intents and purposes, he plays the game right. But Oliver just doesn't get it. And somebody just wrote, are they suited to our system? They can be suited to the system.
Absolutely.
They can be. And so is Matt, so is Bo, as Butch said on the telecast last night. He's basically putting them up on the pedestal and tell them to get their act together. You could be an offensive scoring person, aka Alex Ovechkin, and exist in Barry Trotz's system. You can score 100 points. You can score 50 goals and play the Barry Trotz way. You just have to learn to play the whole game.
All right.
And that's what Oliver needs to do. He needs to go back up to Boston and train his butt off and know what his deficiencies are and work on them. So when he steps back onto Northwell Health Ice Center in September, that he knows he's got to play the complete game. Because if he doesn't, he's going to be taking an I-95 shuffle to exit 28. Did I do it right, Paul?
Oh, I was waiting on that. I didn't have to say a word. Take a drink, take a bow, whatever you like to do there.
I was going to have a beer, but I passed tonight.
Oh. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's the kids were not held back. It again was under circumstances beyond the Islanders' control that the kids were even up. But again, from what the scout was telling me, for right now, it was better to play part-time NHL than full-time American Hockey League. And I think you're going to see a bigger improvement from Kiefer Bellows heading into next season, whereas Oliver Wahlstrom starting the season next year, I think he's going to be in Bridgeport because of what Lou is going to do at the draft. But before we get into the draft, we do yeah,
Thank you. That was good.
Yeah, no. We do need to recognize a couple of players, and this next segment is called Past, Present, and Future. And looking back at the past, we have not talked about this yet. Mike Bossy passing away. I believe it was cancer again.
Lung
cancer.
Lung cancer.
I love telling this story. Mike Bossy got me into hockey. He got me into the Islanders. The 50 goals, 50 games was one of my first games. If not, it was my first game. And it was funny because Brian Chartier just brought up the same game as well. But it was the play after. Bossy had a shot for 51 and 50. And it was a 2-on-none. Bossy was ready to shoot. Already had the goalie looking like a turtle with his back down. He faked out the entire crowd at Nassau Coliseum. And instead of shooting it, he passes it straight to Trotz, and Trotz buries the puck. And it was that move, that surprise move, that got me into hockey, into the Islanders, and into Mike Bossy. And I will forever be grateful for what he did for all of us on the ice, off the ice. Gary, when he was there at the Booster Club, I think it was at Borelli's,
Yes,
you could pick his brain on anything. The question was asked, would you, who's the better player, Mike Bossy or Alex Ovechkin? And he said, and this is where I agree, today's game is so much tougher to play in than when Bossy played. He would take Alex Ovechkin in a heartbeat. And the knowledge he had was just outstanding. But to be around him, the person, was always phenomenal. And gentlemen, give me your thoughts on Michael Bossy.
John, you go first.
I think he was just he was obviously one of the greats, one of the most tremendous people. I met him at that particular Booster Club thing, but my memory of him goes back to in 1985. I had the chance it was the Drive for Five season, and Father Dan was the chaplain back then. Yeah. And I got to meet the team at a practice, and I just never forget Mike Bossy and how good he was, just signing a stick from my brother Glenn and just hanging around and talking to us. it was just a great experience, and that's something that's always stuck with me over the years. So it was really, it was very sad to when I heard he had cancer, and then I heard he went into hospice because I just went through this with my brother a few months earlier. So it kind of had an even bigger impact on me in the end.
Yeah, I mean, for those younger in the audience, and I'm sure they heard about it and saw it, to the tributes that were coming on after Mike passed away. He was, again, wasn't a small guy, looking at, like somebody like a Johnny Gaudreau type guy. He was 6'1". He was 185 pounds. He wasn't, then that was the average size of an NHL player. But he was subjected to such abuse around the net.
Mhm.
Every team that played the Islanders, they had an enforcer, a Tiger Williams kind of guy or something like that. And some teams had more than one. And their role when they played the Islanders, they were on the ice when Bossy was on the ice. Basically, their job was basically, in so many words, beat the living crap out of them. And he was subjected to so much abuse in front of the net, in the corners. But he was always such an advocate of no violence. Hence he won the Lady Bing 3 times. But he took whatever he got from them and sometimes scored goals with them draped over his shoulders. I mean, for the younger audience that likes to watch Matt Barzal dangle the puck and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Austin Matthews and those guys, they're tremendous talents. But no one ever will have 9 straight 50-goal seasons. You may get 9 in a career like Alex did, but he would have had 10 if he probably played, the last 20 games of that 86 season, 86-87 season. Hurt would have hurt back. I mean, he was basically, they said it was like playing with a cinder block attached to you. That's how bad it was. But he was just an amazing talent. And I really don't think there'll ever be anyone like him again. It's just, it's a generational player. Gretzky, is considered one. Mario Lemieux is considered one. But I think you'd have to put Bossy into that same context. Could you imagine what his numbers would have been if he was healthy? Because he retired at the age of 30.
Yes. I mean, think about that.
Alex Ovechkin is 37 right now. So put 50 goals a year for 7 more years. That's 350. Add it to the 537. He'd be at 890 right now, at 37. So he would be at Gretzky's number, if not higher. If he played till Chara was 45, he might have 1,300 goals. But you get these once in a generation. We had a few in that generation, but you could pick them, and
right.
And Bossy was one you could definitely pick as one of the greatest of all time. And unfortunately, him. When you look at Keith Hernandez too, like these are the guys that basically smoked a cigarette in between innings or in between periods, and so was Guy Lafleur as well. And that's unfortunately the nature of the decade that they were in, and it led to both their demises. But you're never going to see another player like Mike Bossy again.
No.
I know I went too long.
No, you didn't. This is what I was expecting, but you did a perfect segue into the present.
Ta-da.
Zdeno Chara. Are we ever going to see a defenseman like Zdeno Chara ever again? If he's retiring, let's give him that.
True. I would start searching, all these professional basketball leagues and see if anybody 7 foot can skate. Why not? No, but a freak of nature, to be that big, that strong, and decide to put on blades. If everybody remembers, Zdeno's father was an Olympic wrestler, so he always was a big, huge athletic guy. But again, he lasted 24 years, and I tell you, to a man, I think he's probably still in better shape than 85% of the team that played on the ice this year.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, but yes, his skills diminished. There were times where you wonder why he was out there, but let's talk. Let's bring up this show again in 2035 when we're talking about how great Mr. Dobson has become. And remember the person that turned Noah Dobson's career around in the NHL. And it's not a turnaround, but basically, put his hand on his butt and pushed him in the right direction. And that's Zdeno Chara. For all he's done in the NHL, winning a Stanley Cup, all-time games played leader for defensemen, yes. But to me, in 15 years, I'm going to remember him as the guy that made Noah Dobson a superstar.
John, give me your thoughts.
I
Chara
would basically echo everything Gary just said. I think he is, again, one of those once-in-a-generation kinds of guys. And I remember when he came up with the Islanders and, freak of nature, I guess, was the term Gary just used. And how disappointed I was and mad when they got rid of him, because you kind of knew what was coming. What you were going to get out of Big Z. And to me, I agree with Gary. I think he had a major, major impact on Dobson's development. And, and I'm sure he also had a lot to do, with the Killer Peas and their continued development. And, that's the kind of stuff, the intangibles that you can't necessarily measure in a stat book. Just the guy's presence. And the thing that I always, would respect and liked as an old time hockey fan is the way he constantly stands up for his teammates. And, and I know, fighting's bad, whatever. But you know what? It's a man's game. It's a physical game. And Z would come to play and he would stick up for you. And I saw that in the Sabre game. All the Sabre fans got on him when he went after Jeff Skinner, who's an irritant. But you know what? That's what earns your respect and admiration from your teammates when you stand up for them like that. So those are the little intangible things that I think that even places a greater value on a guy like Z.
And just to add on one sentence to that, what Barry said in the press conference after the game last night, it floored him to see the amount of respect that Chara had when the Tampa Bay Lightning all of a sudden just walked up man to man and shook his hand, gave him a hug. The referees came and gave him, shook his hand. That's the type of respect that you wish you have as a player,
right?
For other teams to come and show that to you. I think that's just an absolute testament to the type of guy that Zdeno was. And you said he developed. He defended his teammates. And again, I'm not talking about fighting, but it's standing up for him.
Yeah.
It's basically saying, hey, knock it off. Just looking at him and looking at the big teeth when he's yelling at somebody, it's like, oh my God, it would scare the boots out of me, So I'm sure, again, the respect that he's gotten throughout the hockey world is tremendous. And as somebody wrote, and you put it up there, Paul, he's probably got another year in him, but who knows? I think it may be time, but if he's back another year, that's great. If not, what a way to end it, to score in the last minute of your last game.
Yeah, I know.
That's storybook, So maybe there's going to be a Slovakian movie about him, and it's going to end up with him scoring at UBS in the last minute of the movie. So that'd be cool.
And again, because Gary is unknowingly running this show tonight, and he just doesn't know it yet. The future, Noah Dobson. Gary, you've been on this kid for God knows how long. I'm just ready to give you the mic for the rest of the night. I will say this again, and I will say it until I'm blue in the face. Folks, you still have not seen Noah Dobson's apex, his zenith, the top of the mountain. You still not seen the full Noah Dobson. Not yet.
Nope.
Gary, take it away.
And just to add one sentence to that equation, he's only 22.
Mm-hmm.
Just leave it at that. For those listening up in Canada, and I know my buddy Sue, who you know from the Ottawa trip, Paul.
Yes.
Sue from Ottawa is on. She'll tell you, and I'm sure she saw a lot of the Memorial Cups that he played in. You know, I watched some of those games, and I'm sure you did too. And I'm just saying, oh my God, this kid is the real freaking deal. And you know, Paul and I've been saying it for the last 3 years. This kid is only going to grow and grow and grow. You know, you look at a Cale Makar in Colorado. You know, great player, Norris Trophy candidate every year now, and will be. But the difference is, he's 25 and spent 4 years at Harvard. So he's been in the big situations. He's a lot more, mature and experienced. Think of where Cale Makar was at 22. Cale Makar was not having the stats that Noah Dobson has right now. 22.
Right.
So, yes, he made a flub mistake bumping into his teammate, which caused Stamkos to score that goal last night. He's going to have those days. He's going to have those moments. They all do. I watched Makar trip over the blue line a couple of weeks ago in a game in Colorado. You know, they're going to make those kind of flubs. But you can see from basically Big Z putting his arm around him and talking to him and saying, these, certain things to look for, certain things to do, and certain situations to take. He's got the knowledge. And that's huge. That is so huge. And
I'm going to go a step further here.
Go for it.
Noah Dobson has been groomed by the following defensemen, gentlemen: Dennis Seidenberg, Johnny Boychuk, Andy Green, and Zdeno Chara. You put those 4 defensemen 10, 15 years ago? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's a top 4.
Yep.
They are that's a top 4 pairing.
And that's the tutelage he's received since he's been here.
That's the tutelage.
Right.
That Noah Dobson has received since he's been an Islander.
Yep.
It's not going to get any better than that. It's not. John, Noah Dobson.
I just think, like you said, we haven't seen the best of him yet. I mean, if you listen to Barry Trotz talk about him and, how far he's come, but there's still parts of his game that, are only going to get better. And, I'll be honest with you, was I expecting 53 points out of him this season? No, I wouldn't have said that, but I think you're going to see a lot more out of that. And I know you guys have been raving about him for years before he really even broke onto the scene. So to me, I just can't wait to see what the future holds for this guy.
I think to me, there was a turning point. I think around like the 40 game mark.
But when he got benched.
Yeah, he got benched one game. And right after that benching, all of a sudden it was like the clouds just disappeared over his head. It was sunshine and happiness and flowers all around. And, that made his game just soar. It's like all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, I think I got it now, and then he just took off.
I wonder how many points he had in the last half of the season. Out of curiosity, I wonder if there's a way to find that out.
Probably could, but I would say probably he had 52 points. I'd say it was probably about like 16-36. I'll bet he was close to a point a game.
I think you're right.
Coming to the end of the season, he was close to it, but it's just, the skies are unlimited for him. And, is he going to be a Norris Trophy candidate? I'm not going to say that yet, but again, just to end the conversation, he's only 22. Period. That's it. That's all you have to know about Noah Dobson, and be happy with him. He's 22 years old.
And where did we get Noah Dobson? We drafted him. What a segue. Folks, at this point, the Islanders currently sit 13th overall in this upcoming 2022 draft. I am giddy with everything that happened with the Islanders this year. We're going to get into the playoffs in a minute, but I am still rooting for Colorado to lose in the first round, so that way we can get our second round pick somewhere in this draft. I would love to get it back somehow, but no, I'm sorry. If Colorado loses in the first round, we'll get like the pick number 17, whatever it is, or pick. They had the second best record. We'll be in the top 20 in the 2022 draft. That's fine. That's what I want. This is going to be a very good draft. It's going to be very defenseman heavy. For those of you worried about losing Devon Tays or Nick Leddy, don't worry about it. There's a couple of these kids who have a similar style and a mold out of those two in the first round. And the best part about this draft, at least in the first round, is that some of these kids could probably be ready in 2 to 3 years. And they will be joining this Islander squad at some point in the near future. So we'll get into the draft a little bit more later on. I'm still giddy. I'm looking forward to doing that. And I'm honestly thinking about throwing a draft party. We'll talk about that later at some point. We'll get some ideas going around from you guys. I would love to do another draft party. It was a lot of fun last time. Maybe we'll throw it like a charity event. We'll get a couple of speakers. We'll get a couple of, we'll run a charity event. We'll see what happens. But if you guys are interested in a draft party, throw us something in the comments, and maybe we'll all get together and we'll cover the draft.
Well, just remember, you have a couple of former radio hosts on the line.
That's right.
Oh, that's true. But they've got the faces for radio. That's my issue. We're gonna be
thumbs
live.
up, baby. Thumbs up, baby.
Yeah. So, all right, real quick before we get into water cooler talk, because I'm starting to see some of the questions pop up. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs. And this is where I put both John and Gary on the spot because we didn't talk about this at all. I'm going to go with John first. We haven't thrown John under the bus in such a long time here.
Go for it.
John, who do you have? Dallas or Calgary winning that first round matchup?
Calgary.
John?
Calgary.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Gary?
Me? Well,
don't be a suck up the family.
Yeah, for those who know me, most of my family lives in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And I am going to pull, although I do love Calgary. I love the makeup of that team, and my mind says they're going to go far, but my head's saying you've got to pull for Dallas. So I'm pulling the upset.
Oh, brother. All right. I'm going to have that same moment anyway, but yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. John, LA or Edmonton? And for those of you in the comment section, leave your winners in the comment section.
I have to
John,
say
LA or the Oilers?
I have to say Edmonton. As
Okay.
much as
Gary.
Reluctantly, I'm going to say Edmonton as well. I just think I think LA's had a great season and a remarkable comeback, but I think they just fall a little bit short. And I think
Yeah.
finally, for the first time, I think Edmonton's got a real shot. If their goaltending holds up, they've got a shot.
I'm going LA. I think LA is going to upset Edmonton.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to take.
I wouldn't be
LA's
surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. So
I like LA's goaltending over Edmonton's.
Okay. That's the
that's
the
what I'm going
80-pound gorilla in the room,
That's it right there. I'm going LA. Gary, Colorado or Nashville?
Well, I love watching Nashville. Nashville's another team I follow, but in October, I said Colorado was going to win the cup.
Oh, you
so did. I am going to stick to my guns.
John?
Yeah, I'd like to see Nashville win that series, but I just think Colorado's too much. I think Colorado's going to win.
Yeah, the key to Colorado in this whole thing is Darcy Kemper. If Darcy Kemper plays in April and May like he played in October, then I do not see Colorado having any trouble getting out of the West.
And I am also going to go with Colorado, even though I really would love to see them lose in the first round, but I don't see that happening.
Yep.
This is the series coming up that I will be watching very intently, folks.
Amen.
I think this one's going to be the big series coming out of the Western Conference. John, Minnesota or St. Louis?
Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah, no kidding.
No pressure.
That's right. We have unlimited time on this show, John, so don't worry about it.
I'm gonna have. I'll say the Wild, but that's 50-50 really.
Gary,
I'm actually going the same way. Again, the experience of St. Louis is a huge plus for them, but I just have a strange spidey sense in me that that Carill's going to go off. I mean, he's had a great season, and this, I think, is his opportunity to shine. If Minnesota comes out, it's going to be scary for Colorado and everybody else.
Yeah,
because they're either all in or flat as a pancake. So, but I'm going to say I'm 51-49 Minnesota.
And I'm going for Minnesota as well. Also for other selfish reasons, but I am definitely going for Minnesota over St. Louis.
Well, what's the selfish reason? Don't leave us hanging, Kreischer. Come on.
Well, I think if St. Louis really does lose in that first round, I can definitely see
Tarasenko.
I can see St. Louis doing a little retooling, especially in their cap area.
Okay, go Wild.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
wasn't even thinking along those lines.
There's still a certain player in St. Louis who does not want to be there next year. I'm not going to name his name just yet because you guys already know. And I think a loss in the first round kind of puts a nail in that coffin. So go Minnesota Wild. All right, Eastern Conference. John, Capitals or Panthers?
Oh, the Panthers are going to steamroll them.
Ooh, John, I like that. Gary?
The hope is that Aaron Ekblad comes back in the first round. Okay. And that was a big, even though they were playing so well and clinched the President's Trophy and all that loss is huge because he has been, if Ekblad wasn't hurt, he'd be up for Norris consideration too, because he's had a tremendous year. He doesn't get all the points of the Makars and the Yosis, but he is definitely a strong, strong player. The key to Florida's success is the back line. I mean, they're going to score 4 goals a game no matter what whether it's playoff hockey or regular season hockey. They're just built that way. But their key is holding. If their defense holds up, and Bob doesn't become a sieve.
Yeah.
That's the issue. So
All right, Thomas,
I'm
you get
leaning
your little spotlight
Panthers.
here.
I'm leaning Panthers, but it's a scary lean.
Okay. I am gonna go towards Florida. I am gonna lean that way. I think Bobrovsky is good enough just to beat the Capitals, but we'll go from there.
Yeah.
And I agree with Gary. Having Aaron Ekblad back would certainly help Florida in a big way. I just don't know. I mean, for me, if Samsonov somehow got hot, okay, I could probably steer closer towards the Capitals, but I got to put Bobrovsky over Samsonov if that's who Washington's actually starting. So just off of that, I'm going to go Florida.
Yeah.
Gary, Tampa Bay or Toronto?
Okay, Sue, if you're listening in outside of Ottawa, you can tell me who you're picking.
Go ahead, Randy.
You know what? I and it's not because of all the history and everything else. You are the two-time Stanley Cup champions, and you're still the champions until you get beat. And I just think that the experience and all this is going to work into their favor. Sue said neither.
Neither.
Oh, you're a rip. You're a rip. Anyway, I'm still gonna go Tampa. I'm still gonna go Tampa. Toronto's still not gonna win a first round playoff in 20 years, and just let that sizzle.
No, I'm going to go with Tampa for two reasons. Number one, I don't think Toronto's goaltending is comparable to Tampa.
Vasilevsky. Good point.
And I think Tampa Bay's experience, I mean, their last game they played, I know it's regular season, blah, 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 but they sent a pretty good message to Toronto that who was going to be ready in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I do have Tampa taking over Toronto. I think Tampa is going to come out again, not an $82 million cap team, a little bit more than that. And I think they kind of remind me of like that 82. I don't know if it was 82 or the 83 Islanders, where they just coasted.
83.
They were just getting. Was it 83? Yeah, it was 83. This is the Tampa team that reminds me of the 83 Islanders. They've already won. They're just pacing themselves for the playoffs. They're in, and look who they get in the first round. Oh, Toronto. I think Tampa Bay is going to take care of Toronto. This one's got a lot of interest for me as well. Boston versus Carolina. Gary.
Yeah, this is going to be a brutal series.
Yep.
Two teams that definitely don't like each other. Again, Boston has picked their game up. The goaltending's been pretty decent. Swayman's done well. But Carolina still scares me. Even though they won the division and they kind of coasted in. You just don't know what to expect. And the big question is, Freddie Anderson's been hurt. Is he going to be ready, for the playoffs? That's the biggest, Achilles heel for that team. Somebody just wrote, does Carolina have the beef and the depth on D? I've never questioned Carolina's defense at all. That's been the strength of that's been the strength of their team for a decade. Is their defense, despite the change in coaches and everything. That's been the solid part of their team. I don't question the goaltending. I don't question defense. I question the goaltending.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they made that deal to get Freddie Anderson in, who's been tremendous for them. But the question is, he's been hurt for the last 2 weeks. Will he be up and ready game one? That's big. That's a big, huge question. So, again, I'm 50-50 on this, but you know, you got to hate Boston. So I'll go 41. I'll go 51-49 Carolina.
Okay. John.
I'm about in the same camp. I think Carolina. They're just
Disagree with me,
scary.
John.
I just think Carolina is a scary team. That's one of the dark horses that I think, if there was a team that could upset the Panthers, I think it would be Carolina. And I'm not sold on. I mean, yeah, Boston's definitely played better. They've been getting better goaltending, but I'm just not sold on Boston. I think it's going to be Carolina.
I'm going to go Carolina just because of the home ice advantage. I still think Boston's too old to handle a team like Carolina over 7 games, and I think it's going to I think it's going to turn into a series where I think the first 3 or 4 games are going to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
But then I think Carolina's eventually going to wear out Boston, and I think you're going to see you saw something like that last year or the year before when the Islanders took on the Flyers. The Islanders were just basically beating up Philadelphia all over the place. And then in game 7, it wasn't even close. The Islanders just ripped apart Philly. I think you're going to see something similar to that with Carolina. I think Carolina is just going to slowly, methodically beat up the Boston Bruins. So I'm going to give that edge to Carolina. And finally, Pittsburgh. New York Rangers. John, who do you got?
Perhaps the arena can fall on both of them. No, I'm not saying this because I'm an Islander fan. I'm going with Pittsburgh. I just think the experience of Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh has been playing a lot better, and they're one of those teams that can just pull their act together. And I just think I think the Rangers have a very good team, obviously great goaltending, but I just think when it comes to the playoffs, that experience and that willingness to win, determination to win, I just see Pittsburgh coming out of it. It's going to be a long series, but I think Pittsburgh's going to win it.
Gary.
Well, when we talked in October, what was one of the things we said when we talked about the rest of the league? The Rangers were going to be scary.
Yes.
Okay. They were scary. They had a tremendous year. Everything seemed to work in place. You got a Vezina Trophy winner in Shesterkin, by far, no questions asked. Having said all that, John brought up the biggest factor of this is experience, which we know Pittsburgh has. The Rangers haven't been in the playoffs in 5 years. So that is obviously a big factor. But the thing that scares me, even though Pittsburgh has the experience, and I think the dog agrees with me,
yes,
is the situation in net for Pittsburgh. Jari was an all-star, but he's incredibly inconsistent. We know that you can mess him up. A crowd can mess him up in the playoffs. Stop agreeing with me.
No. I don't know what that's all about.
But so that's the only thing that bothers me in this series. I would, if the goaltending situation was more solid, I would pick Pittsburgh in a heartbeat. But as much as it pains me, I'm going to say the Rangers. Only for that factor.
Yeah, no.
I think that. Pittsburgh's forwards and D are going to outplay them, but goaltending is such a problem at this point. And the Rangers power play has been so lethal this year. And power play, as Paul and John, it makes a big factor in playoff hockey. Yep. And if that's a situation, the Rangers get more penalty power plays than Pittsburgh does, Rangers are going to win this series. So that's it hurts me. People are going to comment on it. I know, but it is what it is.
This is the one series I really was hoping was not going to happen. For many of you already know this. Most of my family members are Ranger fans. And I have a couple of other friends, especially another close one who's a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. This is like the worst week and a half for me coming up. It's just, it's like Gary said, we're going to hear it no matter what, and I'm in a catch-22. My heart says Pittsburgh, but my head says the Rangers. I think, yes, goaltending is going to be a big factor, but I think if Malkin really decides to
Show up.
play in these playoffs and he's healthy, Malkin and Crosby can still be the game changers over Zibanejad and Strome.
And Kreider.
If Malkin decides to show up, Malkin can still dominate a playoff series like this.
Yeah, Panarin was injured, but will play game one.
Yes.
Yeah, so that just answers that question.
So, like I said, my heart says Pittsburgh. My head says the Rangers. Either way, it's going to be nausea and headaches and flu-like symptoms for me and for like this next week and a half. I just hope it ends quickly. That's all I have to say on that.
No, John, we want like 4 overtimes in game 7, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we want. That's what we want.
You guys.
We get to throw you under the bus for a change.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love you, Paul.
No, you don't. All right.
Water cooler talk.
Water cooler talk time, boys and girls. This is where we take your questions, comments, concerns. I saw a couple up here regarding Wallstrom. And I should have posted it up beforehand. Can you guys put up those questions again for me? Just type them up again. We'll answer it. I think he said, something about Robin Salo was in there. I like Salo's game so far. Still a learning curve for him. Do I think he makes the Islanders next year? I think he does.
Oh, Paul, you could probably answer this better. The question was about Ratu.
Question was about what? Who?
Ratu.
Oh, Ratu is not going. Thank you. Yes, Ratu's not going anywhere on the Islanders next season. He's going to be down in Bridgeport the whole time, whether fans like it or not. He is a first-round prospect, guys. Make no mistake of that. This is probably going to be one of those picks. It's like a Mike Bossy. I don't want to compare him to Mike Bossy, but how many other teams said no to Mike Bossy? Yeah. And it was like a no-brainer. This might turn out to be a no-brainer, not to Ratu. The one thing I did not like, and we'll get into the prospects and the rest of the organization in a couple of weeks, is that Ratu was basically a no-show during his Finnish playoff times. And for me, the playoffs are a bigger deal than the regular season. Always has been. He racked up more penalty minutes in the playoffs than he did the entire season. It's not a red flag, but that's a little bit of a disappointment after such a very good comeback regular season in Finland. But no, I don't see Ratu coming up to the Islanders anytime soon unless there's an absolute plague next season.
And from what I heard, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but they said, he didn't get any points in the 2 games he played, the last 2 of the season in Bridgeport, but he said he didn't look out of place. That he looked pretty comfortable. Sometimes when these players from Finland and Sweden come over to North America, and they have a tough time adjusting to the smaller rinks in the North American game. But he seemed to fit in, according to people I've talked to, pretty comfortably.
Yeah, folks, for a very brief comparison, think of him as Frans Nielsen with a better scoring touch.
Gotcha.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Frans Nielsen with a better scoring touch. I don't know about his shootouts. I think that's still going to be Franzi's, but
no,
that's the game you should be expecting from Ratu. I think he's a middle 6 centerman, but I think he's going to be a very good middle 6 centerman when he's finally here. Do I see Barzal getting moved this summer? No, quite the opposite. I
Did you
think
hear?
Barzell's
Did you
gonna
hear Thomas? Did you hear his comments today?
Yeah, Barzell wants to be an Islander for life.
Yeah, he's very impressed with that.
Yeah. Yeah, Barzell wants to be an Islander for life, and I'm telling you right now, the draft is going to be huge for Islanders and Islander fans. Lou still needs to make a hockey move. He said that before. And a hockey move is either a salary cap move or a player for player move. We'll get into that later. But I think Matt Barzell is going to get the help that he has been waiting for this summer. So, no, I don't think Barzell gets moved. I think a long-term contract extension is going to happen, and you're going to see a better performance from him next season. So, any other questions, comments, concerns? Yeah, don't worry about Ratu. Don't worry about Dufour. For those of you wondering, Dufour is still playing in the Memorial Cup tournament. He's still in the Quebec Major Junior League, playing in that playoffs. He's not coming anytime soon. He's in the Memorial Cup because the St. John's, they are that home host
So they get an automatic
team.
invite. Yeah.
Right. They got invited. So William Dufour is in juniors for the rest of this year.
Yeah, and the Memorial Cup, I don't think it's until the last week of May, I think.
Last week of May, beginning of June, or something like
Yeah,
that. But yeah,
so
it's
there's
like right around the Stanley Cup.
So even if somehow Bridgeport made some upsets and made it to the third round or fourth round of the playoffs, you're not going to see him come up.
No.
And he's had a tremendous season up there. To get, used to be in the Quebec League, you had guys like LaFontaine and Bossy and that,
Sure.
they score 100 goals in the queue. Now, it's gotten lesser and lesser. It's not as much of an offensive league as it was in the past, but to get the numbers that he got in the queue in like only 60 games, it's pretty impressive.
Out of all the matchups in the first round, which one do you think will be the best? And shut up, Paul. Everyone says shut up, Paul, so I'm used to that. I'm still going. I'm still going Minnesota and
I think that's
St. Louis.
I
agree.
I'm grabbing popcorn. I'm staying up. I've got soda ready. I want to see St. Louis lose. That's so bad to say. I just want St. Louis to lose, and you guys know why I want St. Louis to lose. It's St. Louis and Minnesota, no question, and it's for St. Louis. Yes, they won the cup 3 years ago, but they're at a point where do they still continue to do what they're doing when you have a team like Minnesota and Colorado now ahead? What does St. Louis do? So, who makes the Islanders out of camp this fall? All of them that are signed to an NHL contract. Anyone on a two-way probably doesn't make it.
Agreed.
Let me rephrase that. Anyone on a one-way contract, they will probably be on the Islander roster. Injuries, bearing any injuries, that's it. Anyone on a two-way contract will probably not be on this team.
And remember the graphic that Paul showed earlier.
Yeah, where is
Cat Friendly? He's still on a two-way contract.
He's still on a two-way contract. I would not expect Oliver Wahlstrom there.
I agree.
Now. I'll ruffle all your feathers.
I told you.
Oh, and again, my monthly comment on number 12.
Oh yeah. For those of you who don't like Josh Bailey, he still hit his average. He's a 12 to 17 goal scorer forever now. He racked up 14. Granted, the points were a little lower this year, but again, he's 7 games away from 1,000. The Islanders are not trading him.
Lou will not. Yeah, exactly. Lou would not do. Again, anybody that knows Lou, how important not just the hockey player is, but the person and the situation involved. There is no way on God's green earth that will have any way of him being traded out of Long Island. He will get his thousands. There's no question. Now, when it comes down to during the end of next season, if there's whatever kind of deal, again, someone that's upstairs in my house right now will not be happy, but if it happens, it happens. But there's no way in hell you're going to see Josh Bailey.
And you guys, fans have to remember, if it wasn't for COVID, Josh Bailey already has 1,000 games as an Islander.
Yep.
It's a done deal.
Yep.
So, great question here from Jack Woolston. Who's the next captain after Lee? Big shout out from the UK. Made it to my first UBS game last week. Good for you.
Yeah, sorry I
still
missed it,
haven't made
Jack.
Jack, I'm going to let Gary answer this one because this is kind of easy.
The next captain after Lee.
There's only one person I'm thinking of.
We talking about the one that got 50 points?
Yeah.
That could be. That could be.
That's a possibility.
I'm thinking Noah Dobson will be the next captain. Ryan Pullock could also.
I was kind of thinking about Pullock too as a possibility.
Pullock would be an excellent choice, but I honestly think Noah Dobson will be the next captain of the New York Islanders if Anders Lee remains healthy, finishes up his contract, and everything else.
We're talking about Randy. We're talking 4 or 5 years down the road. So
at least 4 or 5 years down the road. Pay attention, old man. Take your meds. Take your meds and get back to reality with us, will you please? Good Lord. So, any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Bellows will be gone before next season.
No. Don't think so.
No.
Don't think so.
No, I think he's still developable, if you want to use that as a word. I think in the last few games, you see glimpses that he was getting involved in both sides of the ice. And just the comments that he made last night after the game, and he says what he needs to do, and go back home and get ready, and really work hard to get ready. If he's judging by those words, I hope that he does everything he needs to do to make an impression change on here.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. But again, we'll talk about the players, the movements, the trades at another show. We'll talk about it at the draft, certainly. And we will be back after the first round of the playoffs. We'll be back to talk the second round. We'll make predictions there. If anything else is happening, going on, we'll talk about it in, we'll talk about it during the second round if anything happens with the Islanders. I'll take this last question. Who's a prime trade candidate for the Islanders this summer? As of right now, and pay attention because I just said this before, no one. No one is a prime trade candidate yet for the Islanders this summer. We need to find out what happens in the first round. Watch the first round.
Drop the hint.
Yes. Watch the first round. Okay. If things go...
Shut up, Paul.
Yeah. We can put this on. Everyone says shut up. If things go what I'm hoping for, yes, then we'll talk trades. But until then, folks, this has been a very fun show. Despite the outcome, it was a very long season. It's over. The Islanders are going to be better at some point during the summer.
There's cap room.
Chin up. There's plenty of cap room now. John, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me.
Gracing us with your presence finally now that you're not on vacation anymore.
I'm not going to be on vacation till July, and when I go to Hawaii.
You going back again?
John?
Yes.
Where are you going, John?
Big Island and Maui with my brother Glenn and his family.
Yes, folks.
And I go on a cruise
Hawaii,
in September.
Maui, it's like 4 times a year, folks.
Yeah, cruise in September too.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I'm going back next year, Paul.
You're what?
I'm going back to Hawaii next year.
Good for you. John, where can they find you if they ever want to get in contact with you?
Where can they find me? I'm somewhere
on social media.
I'm somewhere on
social
Twitter.
Media.
I think I'm Hockey Blindside at Hockey Blindside.
You are Hockey Blindside, yes.
That's it.
Gary.
Well, since I no longer do GBB, I'm stuck doing this with you. Shut up, Paul. But I don't tweet often, but I pay attention. But it's at IslesMet63. being from the love of my two teams plus the year of my birth. But yeah, it's been a ton of fun. I love doing this, and like I said, Paul's working hard behind the scenes to try to give us the opportunity to be able to do more video talks than what we do now, and I think that's a great opportunity. And once we get that involved, I mean, again, John and I, we loved being on GBB for the last 7.5 years. It was a blast. We had great interviews. Matter of fact, I got to see one of my favorite interviews I ever did, John. I got to see Glenn Healy last week at Alumni Weekend.
Oh, okay.
And, Claire actually got 2 hugs from him, so she was thrilled as can be. But yeah, we had a great time on GBB, and we'd like to do that here. And I'm still going to try to see if I can get some former players with some of my connections to maybe do a show like this, and come on with us.
That works.
That would be awesome.
And me, I guess we'll let Paul in on it too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as he shuts up.
Not likely. So, yeah. All right, folks. You can find me on Twitter at P_Kreischer, KREISCHER. It's down there on the bottom. Don't forget to follow Isles Talk on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Click that like and subscribe button. It's going to help us out immensely. Like I said, folks, we'll be back for the second round. We'll talk about, all the games going around in the second. Heading into the second,
let me just add a PSA. Paul is great on Twitter, and he will get back to you and talk to you. But just know that for the next maybe 12 days, he's going to be locked up in a secret bunker somewhere.
He's going to be sequestered someplace.
Between his family and his friends in Eastern
PA,
he's not going to survive.
No, probably not. I may be gone. I may go missing at this
dude,
point.
I have some interval points. If you want to get a getaway someplace, I can give you
really? I wouldn't mind taking them. Yes, and thank you, Randy, for that reminder. The Bridgeport Islanders will be playing on Monday. So for those of you who are still looking for Islanders playoffs, watch Bridgeport. It's going to be a fun time. They play the Providence Bruins. Providence been a very good team, but at this point, the Islanders are looking a little more retooled and set to go. So yeah, enjoy the Bridgeport playoffs. Enjoy the NHL playoffs.
And if you get an opportunity, Wednesday night at the Total Mortgage Arena in Bridgeport is Game 2 of that Game 3 series, 3-game series. So if you got nothing to do on a Wednesday night, if you're off from work early or you're not working on that day, hey, take the trip. You can get on if you're on the island, get on the ferry.
Get on the ferry. Yep.
If you have no traffic, it's an hour and a half. But we all know how New York traffic can be. But I know the Booster Club. We got invited by the Islanders to actually have tickets and bus up to the game on Wednesday. I think the Drive for Five as well got it. So there's going to be some Islander representation. But yeah, if you can make the opportunity to get up to Bridgeport, it's a great arena. It's a lot of fun, and it's playoff hockey, so we all know it should be pretty awesome. So again, there's your opportunity.
So thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll catch you guys in a couple of weeks. Stay strong, enjoy the playoffs. Let's go Islanders, and we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Maybe I may still go missing. So see you guys later. Have fun.